الحمد لله ونحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلق من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد, all praise be to Allah, who has given us an opportunity to come here in praise of Him again on this blessed day of Friday, a day in which He says, O you who believe, when the call to the Friday prayer is heard, hasten to the remembrance of Allah and leave off your business. ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. That is what is khair, that is what is best for you if you only do. Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala is telling us to leave off our work, to leave our jobs, our business, to leave that and come here for prayer. And for a person who is immersed in the pursuit of material wealth, a person who is immersed in that rat race, which they call it, that pursuit of wealth and self-gratification, it can be difficult for them to understand why they should be here. And so Allah says the remembrance of Allah is better. If you knew how much better this was, you would be running and racing to come here. Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala is saying to us, yes, you are in a race, but it's not the rat race on the outside world. No, it is a race inside of you. A race of khair, a race for the reward and the good of the next world. And so He says in Surah Al-Baqarah in another verse, وَلِكُلٍّ وِجْهَةٌ هُوَ مُوَلِّيهَا فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يَأْتِكُمُ اللَّهُ جَمِيعًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. He says every person, every community has their direction, their wijha, to which they turn. So, فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Compete and race in virtue, in good deeds. Wherever you may be, Allah will bring you together, and Allah has power over all things. Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala in this verse, and also in a similar verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, He's telling us, leave off the argumentation, leave off the debate, leave off the fighting, the struggling, leave it. There will be a day when Allah will bring us all together and inform us of those matters in which we differ. But in this world, if we are to fight, if we are to compete, if we are to struggle with one another, then struggle for khair, race for good deeds. And what's one of the most important things about a race? To get started, to have that initiative to move forward, to blast out of the starting blocks and begin that race. And that's where a lot of us are having difficulty. We're lagging behind in that race for good. There's a group of us in our communities who are doing most of the work while we sit idly by. There are opportunities in front of us, in our masajid and our organizations, in the greater community, calling out to us as an opportunity to do good, but we stay behind. We lack that initiative. We're not starting in that race. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam once was with the companions, and he said to them that he had seen his ummah, his nation. And he said, from amongst my followers, there will be a group of 70,000 who will enter paradise, enter Jannah without any account. That is, without any hisab, without any questioning. Upon hearing this, one of the companions, Ukasha, he stood up. He said, Aminhum ana, Ya Rasulullah, oh Ya Rasulullah, pray to Allah to include me in this group. Rasulullah said, and prayed for Ukasha, said, pray to Allah, make him amongst that group. Then a second man stood up, a second companion, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, pray to Allah to include me in that group. And what was the response of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Sadaqaka biha Ukasha. Ukasha anticipated you. He beat you. He was first. He beat you to it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam could have easily made dua for the other man, but he's teaching us something here about initiative, about striving to be in the front, striving to be first, that competition for good. And so we see that the character of the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that they were masters of initiative. They were always striving and even competing with one another to do good. They didn't leave any opportunities just sitting, not taking. They would take any opportunity that presented to themselves in every day of their life. So we have an example of, for example, Umar ibn Khattab, radhiyallahu anhu, who saw that there was an old woman who needed help, needed assistance in what she needed to do in her daily life. Every time he went to go to assist her in her needs, he found that it had already been taken care of. This happened many times until finally one day he came very early in the morning to see who this mystery person was. And who was it? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu. His main competitor. Abu Bakr always beat Umar. They are always competing, racing one another in khayr, taking any opportunity, even in their acquisition of knowledge. They were not passive, they were active listeners with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They asked him questions, they were inquisitive with him. And so we have then another example of our mother, Salama radhiyallahu anha, in her understanding, in her reflection on the Quran, saw that the male was mentioned but not the female. So she went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She asked him directly, why does Allah mention the man and not the woman in the Quran? And what was the response? It was a revelation from Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. Not even just one, but it said 3 verses. In Surah An-Nisa, لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا اكْتَسَبُوا وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا اكْتَسَبْنَا. And Surah Al-Imran, فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ أَنِّي لَا أُضِيعُ عَمَلَ عَامِلٍ مِّنكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنثَىٰ. And then in Surah Al-Ahzab, إِنَّ الْمُسْلِمِينَ وَالْمُسْلِمَاتِ وَالْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْقَانِتِينَ وَالْقَانِتَاتِ وَالصَّادِقِينَ وَالصَّادِقَاتِ until the end of the verses. We know all of these three verses, Allah is telling us what? Mentioning the male and the female specifically, and that the work and the reward of each of them. These days we talk a lot about gender inclusive spaces and gender inclusive language. The Quran 1400 years ago was more than that, even before we had this concept in our minds. And in this response to this question of Salama, Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala is again teaching us about initiative. You want your rights? You want to be empowered? You want to be validated? You cannot be passive. You must be active in that. You must be willing to ask that question. You must be willing to stick your neck out and to compete. فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Compete and race for virtue. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was once with the companions in the masjid, and he saw that some of them, they were staying sort of in the back rows, not coming to the front. So he said to them, تَقَدَّمُوا, come forward and be close to me. And those who follow you, those who come after you will follow your lead. لَا يَزَالُ قَوْمًا يَتَأَخَّرُونَ حَتَّى يُوَافِرُهُمُ اللَّهُ. If the people continue to be behind, Allah puts them behind. Rasulullah ﷺ is making a connection here for us. If we don't have that zeal, if we're not eager in moving forward in the ranks of our salah, that is an indication of a mentality in which we are not eager in acquiring virtue and racing for virtue. And if we don't want to go to the front, then what happens? Allah puts us in the back. How we are in our salah tells us as much about how we are outside of our salah. The angels, when they stand before Allah, they compete for that first row. And if we do the same, we're manifesting an angelic characteristic. And if we want the world to be a more angelic place, we have to have that same eagerness and zeal to do good. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also teaching us here and saying here, come out, move to the front, fill up that first row, and those who come after you will follow your lead. Just 2 quick reflections from this. Number 1, the next generation, our children. they will follow our lead. But we cannot expect our children to reach a goal, to strive to be the best, if we ourselves are not making the necessary steps in our own life, in our own experience, to set that example, to set that bar high for them to aspire to do even better. Number two, second, the latecomers in the salah, who come late for the salah. They will come forward, they will fill up that next row if we move forward ourselves. The latecomers in the ummah, because my dear brothers and sisters, this group here, we are a very small segment of the Muslim American community. Many of our dear beloved brothers and sisters, they're not here today. They don't come to the masajid. Some of them don't even pray. But they have the mentality and the identity of being a Muslim. And they may not say, but they're looking at what this group of quote-unquote practicing Muslims is doing. Our brothers and sisters of other faith communities, or of no faith at all, they're looking at what this group of Muslims is doing. And what do they see? If they see that we are people of khayr, people of initiative, a dynamic presence in their communities, calling towards mercy, standing for justice, serving the people, uplifting the downtrodden, if they see that, they will come and follow us, follow our lead. Everywhere Islam enlightened society and flourished, these are the conditions for that enlightenment. It was those Muslims in those lands who were the beacons of light. And the people naturally were drawn to them because of their character, because of their goodness. They were drawn to them and even were attracted to them to follow them into the masajid and even into Islam. Don't think that what we do here only affects this small group. No, what we do can bring people closer towards the good and the truth, or push people further away from it. And what is the source of that enlightenment? It is from a heart, the heart of each of us. That heart that desires nearness with Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, and thus as a result will always race and struggle and fight and compete to do good. So let us be amongst those who heed that command of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, taqaddamu. Let us be those who want to come forward, to come to the front. And those who heed that command of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ, race and compete in virtue and good deeds. أَقُولُ قَوْلَ هَذَا وَاسْتَغْفِرُ وَلَكُمْ فَاسْتَغْفِرُوا يَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, in the very first revelation to humanity in the Quran, all of us know, what was that command? It was Iqra, read, recite. If we were to look at this command from a thematic perspective, it is Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala telling us to educate ourselves, to learn about Allah, to learn about ourselves, to learn the path to Allah. What were the next group of revelations Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala gave to the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? What did he say? Ya ayyuhal muddathir qum fa'andir. And then another surah, Ya ayyuhal muzammil qum al-layla illa qalila. In both of these, a common word, qum. Rise. Stand up. Stand up straight. Qum fa'andir. Rise and warn the people. Qum al-layla illa qalila. Rise and pray the night except for just a small amount. Qum. This is a command. Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala in the Quran is giving us a command to be people of action. As if He's telling us in that race, He's telling us, begin, run. Run towards me. Qum fa'andir. Work externally. Take the initiative and work externally, warning the people of what they're doing wrong, telling them of the truth. Qum al-layla illa qalila. Take the initiative and work on yourself, your spiritual relationship with Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, praying in the night, and through ibadah and other worship. Qum. And when we stand, qum would also mean stand up straight. With uprightness. That's where we get this concept in our deen of istiqamah. To be straight and upright. That's where we get that word that in our Surah Al-Fatiha, Sirat al-Mustaqim. We stand up straight. We have upright character. We follow the straight path. So in these initial commandments of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, we are being told to be people of principle, to be people of action. And if we look at the examples of the Sahaba, they were the initial Quranic generation. They were people of principle, they were people of action. They're always looking for opportunities to do good, to stand up for the truth. So we'll just take a brief example of one episode in the seerah of the expedition to Tabuk, which, as we know, was a very major challenge for the companions because they were being commanded to leave their families behind, to march out in the hottest part of the year, hundreds and hundreds of miles to the northern border of Arabia to face who? The greatest empire of their time, the Roman Empire. This was not easy. This was a challenge that would separate the true believers from the false ones. And at this time, indeed, we see all the hypocrites come out and come up with all those sorts of excuses. They said, it's too hot. It's too hot. We're not going to go out. And then some of them came up with even more ridiculous excuses. Just like you or I, we may be tempted to make our own excuses. And there was a man who was from the true believers who was tempted to make a similar excuse. His name was Malik ibn Qais or Abu Khaythama. And for some inexplicable reason, he did not join the Muslim army when it left for Tabuk. He stayed behind. And the army had already marched several days, and he stayed behind. So he's walking home. It's a very hot day. You can imagine in that climate, in the desert, walking home, you're just exhausted, you're drained. He comes home, he opens the door to his home, and what does he find? He finds that his family members have prepared different areas for him to recline on, to rest, with cold water, with his favorite foods. They even, what we would call a primitive form of air conditioning, they sprinkled water in the tent to make it cooler for him. So he walks into that, and this is comfort. Think of our own experience, especially in these hot days that we're having now, these dog days of summer. Our own experience coming home, exhausted, drained, sweating. You come home, you open the door to your home, and you feel that blast, that rush of that air conditioning to strike you. It gives you that immediate relief. And then there's cold water for you. There's your food, your favorite food available for you. There's your family waiting for you. Your favorite spot on the couch is calling out to you. Come, sit, relax, lie down, take a break. You had a long day, take a break. And so here is Abu Khaythama in this position. And what does he think of at that moment? What do we think of at that moment? He thought of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, Rasulullah is suffering the burning sun and the stormy wind while I am here in the shade with food, with water, with my beautiful wives. This cannot be just. I will not enter until I have caught up with Rasulullah. So he gathered his belongings, he got on his camel, and he rode off. Don't forget, the army is already several days ahead of him. But Abu Khaythama caught up with them. Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala got him up to speed to reach them, and he saved himself. Out of the love for Allah and love for His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He realized that was the path of khayr. That was the path that was pleasing to Allah. At that moment, when he was at the portal of his home, when everything around him, when everyone around him, even his own family members, were telling him, relax, lie down. Inside of his heart there was a voice that called out to him and said, oh, rise up, get up. My dear brothers and sisters, rise up, stand up, wake up. Stand up with those qualities. Stand up with that race for virtue. Take that initiative. Stand for the oppressed. Stand and warn the people. Tell them of the truth. Tell them that what they're doing is wrong. Speak out against injustice. That means standing up for the oppressed, standing up for the marginalized, standing up for the brutalized. Let us not wait for those people who come to us. No, we go to them. We go and find them and we serve them. Stand up, take the initiative, and work on our relationship with Allah. In our ibadah, in our dhikr, in our conduct with one another, every night, every day, every moment of our life. When we stand proud. Stand straight. Don't let any of these racists or Islamophobes or anyone define who you are. Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala has defined who you are. You are a Muslim. You are to be a force of good. You are to be a source of hope and optimism. You are a voice of reason, of dignity, of moral conscience, standing for justice, calling to mercy, a beacon of light. Stand proud and be that light. Do the work. And all of this chaos we see around us, it will take care of itself. Stand up. Stand and be counted amongst those of the qualities of the Salihin, the righteous ones, those like Abu Khaytham, those like Ukash. That man who, because of his initiative, received the greatest blessing that all of us should aspire to, which is to be in Jannah, to be in paradise, in the close company with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. One of the greatest of the Tabi'een, the generation after the Sahaba, Abu Muslim al-Khawlani, he said, and I close here with this, he said, do the Sahaba think that they will have the Prophet just to themselves? He's talking here about in Jannah, but being in that company of Rasulullah. He said, do the Sahaba think that they will have Rasulullah just for themselves? He said, no. We will compete with them for that. We will compete with them for that. For that. Are we ready, my dear brothers and sisters, to compete for that? This is our time, and this is our chance. Let not any opportunity pass us by no more. Let us take any opportunity of good that presents itself to us. Let us people who listen to the command of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala and be people of faith. Rise. People who stand up. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الاحياء منهم والاموات انك يا مولانا سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. ربنا ظلمنا انفسنا وان لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكون من الخاسرين. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنه وفي الاخره حسنه وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه وسلم. عباد الله ان الله يعمل بالاحسان وايتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر